Was Jannik Sinner really under the influence of drugs? Was he consuming them to enhance his performance? Was he going to be banned for drug abuse? There have been numerous questions raised about the doping controversy that the Italian tennis player has been embroiled in lately. But the answer is no. Jannik Sinner will not face any ban whatsoever. The player can finally relax and feel that sense of relief that he must be craving so badly. So Jannik Sinner, the men's world #1 tennis player, has avoided a doping ban after successfully being able to defend his argument that the 2 failed anti-doping tests in March had been a result of contamination through his physiotherapist. Right after an independent tribunal last week, a panel came out with a statement that Sinner was under no fault or negligence for twice testing positive for trace amounts of the banned substance clostebol. And now you might ask, what is clostebol? And how were traces of this drug found in Sinner's body? Well, let us answer that question. Clostebol is basically an anabolic androgenic steroid that is derived from testosterone. Now, the concentrations of 121 picograms per milliliter and 122 picograms ml in Sinner's 2 positive tests made up less than a billionth of a gram. And not just Sinner, with over-the-counter drugs in Italy containing clostebol, there have been reports of numerous Italian athletes who have tested positive for the substance in recent years. Strange, right? But not exactly. Well, now that Sinner has been cleared of any wrongdoings and has successfully avoided a doping ban, he came forward and spoke on the issue, saying, "I will now put this challenging and deeply unfortunate period behind me." Sinner wrote in a statement, "I will continue to do everything I can to ensure I continue to comply with the ITIA's anti-doping program, and I have a team around me that are meticulous in their compliance." Well said, Jannik, but the decision to clear Sinner after 2 failed drug tests in March and allowing him to continue playing does not sit well with some players. And who are these players? Let's meet them now. Former Wimbledon finalist Nick Kyrgios was very bold about his opinion on the issue, and he said that he did not buy the explanation and was rather left shocked that Sinner did not face a heavy suspension. Not just Kyrgios, but former world No. 10 Denis Shapovalov was also displeased with the authorities for a lack of consistency. He tweeted saying, "Can't imagine what every other player that got banned for contaminated substances is feeling right now. Different rules for different players." Well, was he hinting at Maria Sharapova? Because her doping scandal is obviously world famous, when in 2016, she tested positive for meldonium, a substance that had been recently added to the banned list. Although when she appealed, she was found not to have intentionally doped and was cleared of fault, she was still banned for 15 months. That's a bit unfair, isn't it? And we are not done with the criticism yet. British player Liam Brody criticized the lack of due process, which allowed Sinner to continue playing for the past 5 months. That too, while the investigation was underway, and typically in such a situation, players serve provisional suspensions, but Sinner did not. Here's what Brody had to say. Whether Sinner was doping or not, this is not right. Plenty of players go through the same thing and have to wait months or years for their innocence to be declared. Not a good look. It seems like the majority of the tennis players are not happy with the decision to let Sinner play. Oh, except for one, and that is former Australian player John Millman, who posted on social media saying, "Before jumping to conclusions, Jannik Sinner had less than a billionth of a gram in his system. I believe him 100%. Maybe we should change the threshold to cater for contamination." But what really happened? What were Sinner's arguments like that made him avoid facing the consequences of clostebol being found in his system? Well, the Italian player's arguments pretty much revolved around his fitness trainer, Umberto Ferrara's purchase of trofodermin, an over-the-counter spray used to heal cuts. So while Sinner and his team were boarding at a villa in Indian Wells ahead of the Masters 1000 event, Giacomo Naldi, Sinner's physiotherapist, cut his finger on the 3rd of March with a scalpel. But obviously that was by accident. Why else would Naldi cut his finger, right? Anyway, after the bandage was removed, Naldi went on to use Ferrara's trofodermin every morning on his cut between 5th and 13th March. During that period, Naldi continued to treat Sinner with full-body massages, while also bandaging Sinner's feet. Could have been a bit careful there, Naldi. Sinner already suffers from a skin condition called psoriasiform dermatitis on his feet and back, which causes itchy skin, and the 23-year-old's scratching can lead to minor cuts and sores. Well, now that Naldi had massaged his feet and body, there was no way that the trofodermin was not going to affect Sinner, and that's exactly what it did. But Sinner and his team argued that he had been contaminated through the treatment he received from Naldi, who had apparently given Sinner the treatment without gloves. And to finally conclude the arguments in Sinner's defense, 3 scientific experts confirmed that this was a reasonable explanation for the presence of clostebol metabolites in the Italian player's system. Now, as Jannik Sinner finds himself in the midst of this controversy, his coach Darren Cahill has come forward to speak on the issue and to put all the doubts and queries to rest. In an interview with ESPN recently, Cahill was asked why the process for Sinner's failed drug tests was kept so secretive as compared to Romania's Simona Halep, whose doping saga was publicized to a major extent. To this, Cahill replied by saying that Halep was initially unaware of the drug entering her body. But on the other hand, Sinner's team had quickly identified the sole possible source of Sinner's contamination and went on to communicate it to the ITIA. This obviously allowed the Italian player to defend himself, appeal, and continue playing without getting into a public scandal. Well done, Mr. Cahill. And amidst all the chaos, the International Tennis Federation has also come out with a call that all provisional suspensions under the Tennis Anti-Doping Agency will be publicly announced. Well, of course, what better time to do that, right? So this amended provision under Article 13.3 of the anti-doping program will come into effect from September 6th, and yes, it will apply to all provisional suspensions, whether the suspension is mandatory or voluntarily accepted. Now, to justify its ruling as to why they are doing this, the ITF says that it must do this to save the reputation of the tennis anti-doping program, along with the reputation of the sport, which has been damaged by accusations lately that players were serving bans without those bans being made public. So what do you have to say about the whole Jannik Sinner doping saga and about the ITF's new ruling and decision?